I'm so excited to be here tonight. I am Raven from Curious Corvid Publishing, and tonight we have the great privilege of talking to our upcoming poetess, Jennifer Gordon, and her talking about her new collection, Poems to Read in the Rain, which publishes on September 22nd. So we're just going to wait a couple minutes so that Jennifer can pop in here before we get started. She is the main event, so it's kind of important. But it's going to be, we had so many wonderful questions submitted. So on our page for the last few days, we've had oh, so many people are joining. Hello, everybody. It's so good to see you all. And Jennifer's here, so I'm sure she's going to join any second. For the last couple of days, we've had a giveaway going on Curious Corvid for a chance to win a copy of Jennifer's new book. You had to ask a question, and then you were entered and are entered into. Here we go. Hi, Jennifer.
Hi.
It's so good to see you. How are you doing?
Thank you. Good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm really excited to talk with you about your book. Are you excited and ready to talk about it?
Yes. I am normally not super excited to talk in front of people, but it's going to be fun. Yes.
Oh my goodness. Well, we have lots of questions for you to answer this evening. So I thought we could kind of just start out with the Instagram questions.
Yeah.
And we'll just go, I'll read them to you and we'll just go through and you can take your time responding to them. And then there's a few bonus questions too from me that you'll get the pleasure of answering as well. So let's see, our first question. Oh, and so these questions from Instagram, these are all people who will be entered to win a copy of your book. So if you are in the United States, you will get a print copy, and if you are overseas, you will get a PDF or ebook version of it. But either way, you're still going to get to read it. So our first question of the evening comes from Jay Strong Poetry. Jay, I love Jay. And he asks, do you have a favorite place and or time of day to write?
I do. I absolutely love writing in the morning. I actually get up early every morning. I set my alarm for about an hour before the rest of my family gets up. And I just drink coffee, and sometimes I light candles, and I just sit by myself in the dark of the early morning, and that is when I love to write and read and do all those quiet things.
Very nice. A little quiet, peace and quiet before everybody else gets around.
Yeah, because once everybody else gets up, then there is no more peace and quiet around here.
Our next question, and forgive me if I say your Instagram handle wrong. Our next question is from Blacinda_Storm Drain. And they ask, love the title. What inspired it?
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. I just love the rain. I feel like the rain brings about certain vibes, certain emotions in people. I don't know. I just really enjoy storms and the sound of rain, and just, I don't know, most people when it rains go inside, and I like to go outside and dance around in the rain and just feel it. And I don't know, that's just my weather. It's my thing, and that's my favorite thing to do when it's raining, is just to sit and read. And so that was what came to me as the title for the book.
That's so nice. And I feel like the kind of poetry that you write is so ambiotic. It like just fits in with that theme of like sitting and the rain and everything. The whole aesthetic just belongs together, which I think is so cool.
Thank you. Thank you. I love that you think that. I appreciate that.
So our next question is from Spilling Grace.
Hi, Grace.
And she asks, what are your favorite poems about?
I would say my favorite poems by other people are often about nature and tying nature into the emotions that we go through in life. I just have always connected with nature, and I'm sure you can see that in a lot of my poems. I bring in a lot of ocean and woods and all those things, and that is where I feel most rooted in my life, and so I always feel really connected to those poems that touch on nature.
Yes. That is a very heavy reoccurring theme in your poetry, which I find so delightful. I love a poet that is able to carry a theme or carry an aesthetic and do it successfully, so that like when you read that piece, you know it's that poet. And I just think that that is such a remarkable quality to have.
Thank you. Yeah, there are some poets that I follow who I just love, who same thing, like I can tell, oh, I know who that is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, yes. Our next one is from Salty Tater Tats. And
I don't know who that is, but I love that name.
I know, I love the handle too. It is, okay, so their question is, how long did it take you to find a publisher for your work?
Oh, okay. So I'm not super helpful with this question because I really lucked out. So I happened to know Raven before she became a publisher. So then when she started Curious Corbin Publishing, I was kind of like, hey, how you doing? You want to publish my book? And she was like, yeah, I kind of do. So that just worked out very naturally for us, and I was really, really blessed by that. I don't know, Raven, do you have any suggestions for people who are looking for publishers and how to go about that? I assume that's probably where that question stemmed from.
Yeah, well, there are a lot of small presses out there, and more coming all the time. I think there's been much more of a trend towards indie publishing and self-publishing even. So I would say for my advice would be get involved with some writers groups and communities, kind of see what's in your area, look for writers who write things similar to you, and then kind of branch out and connect with people to see what's available. Take your time picking a publisher. Don't just settle, and make sure that what they have to offer is going to complement what you're writing. Because, I mean, it's such an exciting journey when you have your first book and you're like, oh, I'm ready to do this. It's your baby, and you want to make sure that whoever is handling it is going to treat it like their baby too.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are all really good.
Okay, our next one is Nav Violet. She says, congratulations, Jennifer.
Thank you.
How long did it take for you to write the collection? And do you have any advice for poets that wish to publish?
So I think this collection of poetry, it came about over a decent period of time, probably over about a year. And a lot of those poems were actually written before I even decided I wanted to write a book. So a lot of those poems were pulled from things that I had written previously. So yeah, I guess about a year. But once I decided I wanted to actually write the book, it was probably only a couple months of really collecting and integrating things and trying to figure out exactly what I wanted the book to be about. So that, yeah, the whole process, I would say probably about a year. And in terms of advice for other poets, as Raven had said, you really want to find someone, if you're going to use a publisher, who appreciates the kind of poetry that you do. And I feel like it's very important as a poet to not stray from the kind of poetry that you want to do, to not feed to the masses, to not try to be something that you're not. You know, if you're going to publish something and you're going to make it your book, I mean, that's a huge project, and that's something that's very personal, and you really want to keep it personal and special to you. So just staying true to who you are, I think is really important.
I love that. That is so true. And I think when you go to publish, you want to be something that stands out. You want to be something people will read. And I think the best way you can do that is by being who you are, because like that's the best thing you are, right? Like nobody else can do you like you.
Right, exactly.
All right. From lifestyle_writing, why do you write? Where do you get your inspiration from?
Good question, Wilbert. I originally started writing when I was going through some really difficult things, and I had a therapist who was wonderful and really encouraged me to do more writing. So my writing started as therapy, it started as journaling, it started as writing down my emotions, and in that process, I remembered that when I was a teenager, I had loved to write poetry, and I had really gotten away from it. So I just kind of started turning back to that, and just using that as a way to express myself, to my feelings down on paper, and then to create something. Just creating something in itself is really therapeutic. And so I just kind of fell into that over time, and I would start writing every morning and every day, and just more and more and more, and it just really became a part of my life all of a sudden that I really loved.
I love that. And poetry is it's like a universal love language to me, because it's so subjective and everyone can take it in whatever way they need it that they need to take it.
Yes.
So yeah, it's a lovely medium to write in.
Yeah, it's a way of connecting with other people, which I love.
So the next one is from Wobble Gobble.
I love her handle. Love it.
They say, congratulations, Jen. What inspired you to write this collection? Also, did you experience any writer's block in the process, and how did you tackle it?
So there were several different things that inspired it. I'm not exactly sure how to answer that question, because I feel like a lot of those poems were inspired by a whole lot of different things. But the inspiration to make the book in itself, I actually have wanted to publish something since I was about 4 years old. My dad used to be a writer also, and we would write little things together, and we actually submitted stuff to magazines when I was a little kid. And so when I was using this kind of as therapy and getting back into poetry, it just kind of came back to me that, wow, this has always been my dream to publish something, because I should actually do that. So this has been really exciting. And then, sorry, what was the other part of the question, the second half?
Have you experienced any writer's block?
Yeah, writer's block. Yes, I mean, I think every poet, every kind of writer of any kind has experienced writer's block. And I haven't had like a huge year-long period of it or anything, thankfully, but I do certainly have gone through like a week or two at a time where I'm just like, I have nothing good to say. I'll start writing something. I'm like, well, that's terrible. Okay, so I'm not going to put that on the internet. And, you know, like, there's just, I don't know. It just comes back eventually. It just comes back. I don't have a magical solution for it. I accept just to be patient with yourself and not force it, because if you're forcing yourself to write something when you're not inspired to write anything, it's not going to be good. You know, so I just was patient with myself, and eventually I would just have things to write again. You know?
That's good advice. That is very good advice. All right. So our last question from the Instagram is from David PG Books, also a curious Corvid.
Yes.
And he asks, how important is accessibility of meaning? Should one have to work hard to solve a poem?
Oh, I actually love that question. I think that's a really interesting question. I don't think that there is a specific answer to that necessarily. I think it's more of a discussion. I think that's really up for opinion. So my poems personally that I write do not take a ton of digging. It's not supposed to be a mystery. You know, like there are some really good poems out there that you really have to pick apart and delve into, and sometimes even look up the words, like, what does that word mean? And then, you know, really trying to figure out exactly what the person is trying to say, and then also how that connects to how you're interpreting it. And it can be a really long process. I mean, these are the kind of poems you studies in humanities class, you know, in high school. And I love those kind of poems. I really do. But for me, that is not personally the type of poem that I write. So I think it's just really what kind of poetry you're in the mood for as a reader, and what kind of poetry you will gravitate towards as a writer.
I agree with that. When I was younger, I had like pie in the sky ideas of like poetry and writing, and I was like, oh, I want to end up in a literature book and have like be like one of those mystical poets that no one really knows what I'm saying. But now that I'm actually like into it, I'm just like, No, it's too much work for me. I'll just put it out there and you take it how you want to take it.
Yeah, yeah. I remember being in high school and being so angry with my teachers because we would read this poem, which to me was fascinating, and I wanted to know all the details about what brought this poem about. What exactly are they saying? What is he trying to like? And I would get so mad because they'd be like, "Well, it's whatever you interpret it to be." And like, no, I want to know what it's supposed to be about. And there sometimes just was no answer. You know, you just had to discuss it and try to figure it out. And so I do really appreciate that kind of poetry because I think it's so interesting. But for most of mine, I feel like, I mean, they're relatively easy to understand. Although even with that, there are a lot of different ways to interpret things just based on things that have happened in your own life and what's in your own head when you're reading something.
Yes.
I have noticed that having discussions with people about my poems, even when I think they're very clear cut and everything seems very obvious to me, somebody will say something in response to it where I see that they took it a completely different way. And that always catches me off guard sometimes. And then they'll explain to me how they interpreted it. I'm like, oh, yeah, that definitely makes sense. I just never even thought of it that way. So, you know,
Yep.
even the simpler poems can really connect to people in different ways, which is something I love about poetry in general.
Yes. It's magical. It's magical the way that you can write something and then someone reads it and they get something completely different than what you did. And
Yeah.
it's just, I just think that that is so amazing. And I love that there's that connection, even though it's different. And I love that it can be such a healing and therapeutic thing, not just for you, but for the person who's reading it.
Yeah.
That to me is just like the ultimate, like that is what every poet should aspire to be, in my opinion.
Yes, yes, that is one of the most meaningful things in the world to me when people give me that feedback. They're like, oh, I really connected with this. This really touched me. This really made me feel like I'm not alone in feeling this way. And like that is just such a special thing to hear. It's really,
Yes.
really been meaningful to me in this process.
That was a really good question.
Yeah, thank you, David.
Okie dokie. Yes. Our next, so the next set of questions are ones from, not from Instagram, they're from me, so you're welcome.
Thank you.
What was the most surprising thing you learned creating your book?
I say, honestly, what I just touched on about people interpreting it differently, that was really surprising to me because I had a few friends read through and proofread and give me feedback on all the poems and everything. A handful of times at least, they would give me feedback about a poem and I could see that we were reading it differently. Like I remember one specific time my friend wrote to me and was like, this poem completely contradicts itself. I don't understand what you're trying to say. And I was like, no, it doesn't. And so I like explained exactly what I meant. And they were like, oh, I didn't take the words that way. Okay, yeah, that does make sense. But then I had never seen it the way he was reading it. Like, oh, now that you say that, well, that does seem backwards. You know, it's just interesting to see things through different people's eyes. That surprised me that all those different perspectives hadn't come to me as I was writing it. You know, like there's always something more to see.
This is true.
Yeah.
What would you say is your interesting writing quirk?
I don't know if I have any like regular everyday kind of writing quirks. This is Maisie, by the way. Hi, Maisie.
Hello.
But when I was writing the book, a few of my friends kind of made fun of me and thought this was funny. I don't like looking at computer screens. I get headaches looking back and forth between stuff. And so in order to organize the book and lay it all out, I printed out all the poems and then cut them all out into little squares and then laid them all out on the floor. And then that was how I like picked them out and put them in order and made the whole like book happen, which is kind of quirky. I don't know, but it felt like it worked really well for me.
That's super interesting. I've not heard that before. I'm actually going to recommend that now when people ask me. Because I have people ask me, well, how should I go about organizing it? And I'm like, your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah.
I usually start with like the beginning and then the ending and then just hope the rest of it comes together.
Yeah. And it will.
I like
Whenever
that.
we organize it, it'll come together, but I don't know. That seemed to work well for me.
All right. So when people read this book, they're going to see all the things that are in it. But what are some things that you edited out of it?
I did edit out quite a bit, actually. I actually started the book with 5 chapters and I ended with 4. The 5th chapter, I had, I don't even remember what it was called, but it was basically dedicated specifically to poets. And it was specifically about being a writer and like dedications to poets and like those kind of things. And in the end, I just felt like it didn't fit the rest of the book. But I was frustrated because even though it didn't fit the flow of the book, some of those poems were my favorite poems that I had written. So I ended up taking a couple of my favorites and integrating them into the other chapters, and then I just kind of edited out the other ones. And I was like, well, if I really love them, I can always put them in something else another time. And then just throughout all of the chapters, I did end up editing out a handful in each one. Just it ended up way too long when we first made it. I was like, oh, so it's a little much. So I did pick out, a handful in each chapter that weren't my favorite. But
so do you think you might use those ones in a future project?
I might. I don't know. Maybe.
Which brings us to, what are your future writing goals?
That is a great question. I'm a firm believer in one goal at a time. And so I am just so excited to have this book come out and to have, essentially that dream come true. Like I said, I wanted to do this since I was a little kid. So for me, that's so exciting. But I definitely want to do more. So my goal is, once this is out, once the dust is settled, once I've allowed myself to fully appreciate the first book, then I do plan on writing another one. I don't know what it'll be about. I don't know when it'll be, but I do really want to do another one.
Maybe we'll get Poems to Read in the Rain Volume 2.
Volume 2, maybe. I feel like I should call it something different. Maybe Poems to Read in the Sunshine? Poems to Read in a Cabana? I don't know.
I mean, I would read that.
That's not really me. Maybe like Poems to Read while in a tree. That would be more like me.
Ooh. Treetop poetry.
We'll think of something. Yeah.
All right. So that was the last of my questions for you. So I hope you don't mind. I actually picked out a couple of my favorite pieces from your book, and I would like to read them if that is okay with you.
Oh, yes. Thank you. I love that.
Okay. It's just a couple because, I don't want to spoil it for everybody, but I thought give them a little taste and encourage them to go out and get it for themselves. So the first one is the first one right at the very beginning of her book, and I loved it because it talks about being the poet. So here we go. Each of us has our lot in life. I am the observer, the humble weed, the poet, silently planting seeds of words that spring up from the dirt, entangle my roots with written truths, and drain my form until I thirst for one more glimpse of you, my muse, the one who waters lonely hours with drips of moments my soul devours. You are the moonlight gracing petals in a midnight garden of growth unsettled. I love that one. I mean, I'm a dark poet myself, so that imagery of a midnight garden of growth unsettled, thank you.
Thank you.
The next one I'm going to read is from chapter 3, Digging Through the Dirt, and it is on page 102. And here we go. I will not slip beneath the surface, will not succumb to waves of sadness that wash upon my trembling lips, dripping salt on labored breaths, weakened bones and weary heart will tread through waters in the dark. For I am a muse to those who weep, and I will prove we can conquer the sea.
I'm glad you chose that one. That one's special to me. I love that one.
I love that one so much. I love all of the poetry in your book, honestly, and I'm not saying that just because I'm your publisher and that's my job, but
thank you, David.
I really do. And I really appreciated just how thoughtful your presentation was. I could tell you put so much time figuring out what you wanted to say, how you wanted to say it, and the illustrations that you chose to go along with all of your pieces are so complimentary, and just you look at this and you see it as a work of love. And I am just so honored and proud to get to be your publisher for your debut collection, and I'm so excited for you. And it's been just a joy to work with you and to create this with you. So I hope down the road I get the opportunity to do it with you again.
Oh, thank you. I was so glad that you didn't fire me in that first week. So poor Raven. She sends me the very first detail. She's like, I just need you to pick out a font for the title. This is all I need you to do. This is very simple. So she sends me these choices. And I'm like, oh, I don't know. Can you send me some more choices? Like, I just don't think this is right. And she sends me a bunch more choices. I'm like, nah, could you maybe look up this font that I found? And then maybe this font that I found? She sends me all these choices. God bless her. She was so good to me and so patient. And after like 2 weeks of trying to figure out this font, I'm like, I think I actually like the first one best. Could you go back to the very first one you ever sent me? That's the one I want.
I honestly loved that moment though. like when it was all said and done and you were like, oh, like the first one. Just like...
I could just picture you at home like, oh, really? You're very patient, and I appreciate that so much. Did you see I have my t-shirt on? It just came in.
I did, actually. I was going to say, I see you're repping Curious Corvid. It looks really good on you.
Yes, thank you. It fits great. I bought the hat, too. It's a little warm here for the hat, but I'll wear that soon.
It's coming. No worries.
Yeah, it will, which I am not sad about. I am not a summer person, so I am very ready for fall.
All right. So are you able to draw the winner for our book raffle this evening?
Oh, yeah. Hold on. Let me get it up.
If you want me to, I can reread out the names to you.
Yeah, reread all the names to me to make sure I have them on here.
Okay. 1 second. We don't want to leave anybody out. Okay. We had Jay Strong. Lucinda Storm Drain.
Okay.
Spilling Grace. Salty Tater Tats. Nav Violet.
Okay.
Lifestyle Writing. Wobble Gobble. And David Grinnell, our David.
Got it. Ready. Wobble gobble.
Wobble gobble, congratulations. I will tag you in the comments and reach out to them and get their book out as soon as it is available. This is The Proof, Poems to Read in the Rain. It is beautiful and amazing. And it debuts September 22nd. It will be available worldwide on Amazon Kindle and all of your local bookstores. You can order it also through Kindle as an ebook. So it's coming. Prepare yourselves. It's going to be the kind of book that you save to read when you're feeling sad, when you're feeling happy, when you want to feel comforted. It's just going to be a good read all the way around. So, is there anything else you would like to say before we end this?
I just want to say thank you to you for all of the amazing things that you have done. You have been so good to me. Hi, this is my son.
Hi.
And thank you to everybody who tuned in for the live and everybody who's going to watch it later and everybody who buys my book. I just appreciate you guys so much. This whole community has just been so amazing to me. And I really appreciate each of you a lot. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much for everybody who stopped in to watch, who has liked and commented and shared. Stay tuned. There's a lot of really exciting things that are going to be happening in the next couple of months through Curious Corvid, both with Jen and with our other authors as well. So, September 22nd, mark your calendars. Here it is. And thank you so much, Jen, for spending some time with me this evening and letting me pester you with a bunch of questions.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in, too.
All right. You all have a great rest of your night, and we will see each other soon.
I am the rocks of the ocean floor, deeply rooted and beautifully worn. You are the light that calls to my heart, a wondrous pattern of evening stars. I was held by the depths as you were swept to the sky, but even the heavens are not too high, even this distance is not too far to keep me from yearning for all that you are.